Greetings, gardeners. Here we are with Hillary at her farm, Hawaiian Cloud Forest Coffee in Honoka'a, Hawaii. Coffee in Hawaii is a common thing. Hillary's coffee is not common because they grow it under Hawaiian koa trees. This is totally amazing. I'll show it to you later on in the video. But I'm here today because there are apple trees in Hawaii. I mean, I don't get a chance to prune apple trees in Hawaii very often. So here we are. So the first thing to know about pruning apples, no matter where you are, is you look at a tree, and the first thing you're going to look for is any dead wood, any broken wood, or any diseased wood that's in the trees. Now, I've already taken a pretty good walk around your tree, and apparently, because of your isolation out here 2,500 miles away from all apple tree diseases in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, you don't have any diseases. There is nothing on this tree that I can see that frightens me. Now, you will see that there is a tremendous amount of lichen growing on this thing. That is actually how I got here in the first place, because Hillary had so much lichen on the orange trees that it was obscuring the sunlight and they were not thriving. That's very, very unusual to have lichen growth to that extent. I guess most of the lichen on this tree is on the trunks. If a person wanted to bother to go through and pick it off, you could, but it actually doesn't really mean much of anything, despite the fact it looks awful. So, there we have it. The next thing, then, as we're looking through the tree, and I do not find much dead wood of any kind of disease, I have seen a little bit of broken wood, so we remove that. So first the dead wood goes, and the diseased wood. Next, we take off the broken wood that we find in the tree. Finally, what we're going to do is go inside this tree, and the tree is crowded, very crowded. It's really never been pruned much at all, and so it's kind of grown up on the natural here. It also has kind of an unusual form. The tree is trained or happened to grow into a vase shape, which is not unusual if it was an apricot, a peach, a nectarine, a plum, or any stone fruit. But as an apple, they're generally not trained that way, but it's okay to do that. So a little different. Usually what we do is use a modified central leader. The trunk will come up and rise maybe 4 to 5 feet with the limbs coming off of that in ascending spiral, maybe 5 or 6 limbs coming off that taller trunk going upward. Then the trunk's headed off after that. And the trees are generally on apples typically kept closed in the center because they will fruit in or out, whether there's sunlight in there or not. But in this case, we have really gotten so crowded that we're going to thin it. And the principle here, will be, if I'm a little bird, can I fly through the canopy? And if I can't fly through the canopy without hitting something on my way through there, then the tree is probably too tight. Simple judgment. Now, I also see a couple other things happening here that we want to watch for. You have some limbs that, for whatever reason, this one either was cut or died back right here to an inward bud. And so you have 1, 2, 3, 4 branches heading inward, whereas the natural flow of this limb would usually be outward, see? And I've got this stem right here. I like it. And maybe next year, when the tree is pruned again, by then we may go for this stem as being the end of this limb. All right? I'm not going to do it all at once. The reason I won't is that the tree's been there for a long time, and I can look at it and go, well, I have the perfect vision of what this apple tree should be, but attempting to do that in one sweep is probably not the best idea. And you might not have any fruit if I did that. So instead, we're going to kind of balance this between what I'd like to see and what you got. Take this one off right there, because that was heading at the other limbs. And you really want the limbs heading away from each other, not at each other.
Right, and is the principle the same like in rose pruning? You're always making it go outward? So
well,
are you trying to open the center? And
well, in the apple, you don't really need to open the center if the tree was trained to the modified central leader, but you do train things so they head outward and away from each other. Okay, in this case, the tree's been vase-shaped, and so we're going to prune vase-shaped, so yes, we're going to tend to open the middle.
Yeah, because you have that one that's going outward.
It's not too bad. He can stay. All right, that's good. And then, let's see. I'm going to take this off on the inside there, between these two. See, I'm creating space, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, and then, well, why not? This is one of the tallest pieces in the tree. I'm going to remove it because it'll help keep the fruit closer to the ground and make the tree branch lower. And so I'm also working for high wood, and this one's big enough and it's tight in here, and I'm going to have to use a saw. Oh, there we go. Got it. There we go. All right. Looking better all the time. Now I'm going to switch down to hand pruners. Tip of this chute's heading this way, that's great, but this tip is colliding back here, so I'm going to separate those. Right here we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces all in one place. I'm going to take the tallest one off right there, get rid of it. That kind of cleared that up. Now we have...
And what about, why are you leaving this little guy here?
Oh, sure, okay.
I mean,
well, this chute has the potential for fruiting. Most of the short, knobby looking little twigs in apples, like this thing right here, for instance,
right, you can
those are fruiting spurs.
Right,
and so the
fact,
funny, knobby little, little knobby twigs like that, and some of the shorter twigs like the one you just looked at that have a good bud at the end, all that's going to be where the fruit comes from. Okay. Most of the fruit on apple trees actually comes on fairly long living fruiting spurs. That's these. Yeah, so like this short knobby little twig here, or here's one here, this is perfect, see? This is what's called a fruiting spur. This twig has the flowers and the little apples right on the end, like that. There's another one back here, another one back here. So a lot of those really short, kind of weird looking twigs in apple trees, they're to be conserved rather than removed. While running nursery in California, I was in the store one day and I had an old gentleman come in. He had a whole bucket full of funny knobby little twigs from his pear tree. And he said, "Bill, look at these twigs. They're all deformed and twisted. What's wrong with my pear tree?" I said, "Well, I'll tell you one thing. It ain't going to fruit this year, Frank." "Why? What happened?" "Well, you cut all the fruiting spurs off." "Really? I thought they were deformed." So, yeah, so some of the weirdest looking wood in the apple trees oftentimes is the most important. Of course, cuts you make, they should be fairly close, so you don't have big stubs. And you want the angles so that rain will drain off. That's particularly important around here. So everything's cut on a slope so that the water comes off of it. Now I got a funky old cut here. This one, the bark's actually messed on the outside. Maybe it was from weed whackers or I don't know what caused it, but this piece of wood is damaged. And it's going nowhere anyway, so I'm going to take that one off. This off. Let me see. All right, step back, look at my work for a second, decide who's going to stay and who's going to go. This one is going to go right here.
And why did you choose that one? I mean, it was curving out. You're right, you're right.
But actually, I'm probably going to end up taking this all off right now. Okay. Pruning is both a science, an art, and just plain intuition. And the truth of the matter is when you go around a tree, the point is you want to really get the work done. You want to get it done right, but you want to get it done. And there isn't a hard rule about what's what. Okay, it's very flexible, actually, pruning fruit trees, for the main reason is that they're going to grow back next year anyway. And anything you bung up this year, you can fix it the next year, and so on. I mean, you make a plan for the future. I do a lot of times when I'm looking at trees. What am I going to do next year? And so you got to act. It needed some thinning. I decided to take that one, mostly because it was kind of a weak branch, and you got a whole lot of stuff up here that's really strong heading this way.
Okay.
That was why. Okay, and now here this is crossing over, so we're going to remove that and get rid of it. Now we start to have this problem here. I like this branch a whole lot better than I like what happened here. And so this one I'm not going to necessarily take it off because it's got fruiting spurs on the side, but I'm going to cut this piece of it off. And all this stuff that's coming off here, you know, is totally awesome for the barbecue grill. Oh, you ever use applewood?
Well, I sure know. I've never personally, but I sure know it's good.
Awesome. It's so good. All right, now here, I'm going to thin this out, right there. Creates a better outward spread. Here we do have a piece of broken wood, look. I don't know how that happened. Somebody climbed up here, but that one's broken. So,
I think we had some wild winds. It has to have been wind, I think.
There we go, so broken wood's out. This one's crossing back. I'm going to shorten it quite a bit. Right there. If you ask me why did you cut that branch off, I'm going to say because it pissed me off, Hillary.
So there.
That's it.
That's it. That's all it has to be.
That's it. Remove that. I'm going to remove this.
Did you choose that because it was older and the other shoot that you were, this one here is kind of younger and more?
Kind of did it because it was taller. And in the process of thinning, I'm also shortening the tree's frame closer to the ground. That was the tallest shoot in here, and it was tangling up with everybody else. You know, especially you're doing this for a living, you're not going to sit there and go, well, let me see now. The homeowners a lot of times will spend huge amounts of time deliberating, sometimes over, you know, this one, that one. It doesn't really matter. Not much, at least. It's you know, it's not worth that much.
As long as you understand the principle.
Yeah, and remember that, you know, things will change next year anyway, and the year after. Crazy limb right there, I see, and I need to get this thing out. So now we're going to go to what's known as an orchard lopper. Here.
Oh yeah, that's a handy tool.
Yeah, this is an Astron from Japan. They're really hard to find. I like them. They're great. They're made out of aircraft aluminum. Very lightweight. You know, you can hold this thing up for hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice. And I'm just going to use this right now just to head back a lot of your shoots up top, just to create more forking down here at ground level. Was what I'm all about with that. Okay. One of the other reasons that we prune fruit trees is because it limits the amount of weight on the tree. And if we don't prune trees periodically, what's going to happen to us is they're going to get so heavy with fruit that they may collapse. And so one of the things this is doing is limiting the amount of fruit the tree would actually set. Now, you know, we're not in Minnesota or someplace where this tree might just go gaga and set a huge crop. Here you'd be lucky if you get apples on it, period.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it's just basic practice with trees. You want to be shortening limbs and bringing things to the center all the time. Pushing downward and inward. Downward and inward. Okay, so now it is time to step back and admire our work and see how we did. Definitely the tree is much thinner. You don't have as much confusion in there. The wood is not conflicting as bad. We've removed most of the stuff that was hitting the other limbs and so on. We should have enough room in there for the apples to set without banging on other branches. That's one reason we thin it too. And I can see a game plan for heading into this tree next year and the year after, and mostly what you're going to be concerning yourself with. Just keeping it thin and trying to get the branch direction like the roses so it's heading more outward from the centers, you know. And then we allow sideways forking, secondary and tertiary branching. You get your primary stuff coming off the main trunk, which are your scaffold limbs. Those come out, but then they start to head into another set of branches, and those should be fairly evenly spaced along the scaffold branch, so there's room between them as they come. Ideally, they are tending to grow outward from the middle more, and then those branches are going to produce a third set that fork out, and we can even sometimes go as much as a fourth set and keep it in the tree. In other words, that you have the original limb makes a secondary limb there. That secondary limb grows into tertiary limbs here, and you can allow fourth limb structure to develop. By the time you get too much further out than that, you've probably gone too far out from the core of the tree, and you're going to have to push things back. And so in the process of pushing it back, what we would probably do is look at what would be some of the most vigorous, most well-placed limbs that have the best shape naturally, and going in and finding another limb that's nearby, heading roughly the same direction, that looks more deformed, not as vigorous, you know, just make a judgment call and say, take that one off, leave this one here. Especially if the one you take off is the oldest, heaviest, longest ones. We'll remove those after a while, because see how this one here is very vigorous and has produced an awful lot of growth quickly. This limb grew fast, and what's on it is also growing fast. For some reason, this is a very vigorous limb. That one can eventually start to get just plain too heavy. After a while, yeah, especially the way it's growing upward like that. And so, you know, maybe a year or so from now, you might be taking it off here, or taking it off here even, pushing it back. That's going to make new shoots to come from lower. And so then gradually working the new shoots and taking the old shoots out. So the more fruit you can grab from ground level, Plus, the shorter trees don't attract the birds as much. If you got a tree that's got a stature of only 6 or 8 feet and most of the fruit's in that load, you're probably not going to have as many birdies sitting up at 12 feet pecking holes in the fruit. We definitely put some fertilizer down now because you're getting flowering, and so if you have something that's got both nitrogen and phosphorus, you're going to promote good bloom, and you're going to get rid of, or rather, you're going to regrow most of the leaves quickly. And I always recommend, if you have a mulch you can throw down, whether it's whatever it is, coffee cherry, grass clippings, piles of leaves, throw the fertilizer down and toss a mulch over it is a really good idea, because that will help it work better if it's in the dark and in the moist underneath. If you use an organic and you lay it directly on the surface, usually it won't function very well.